Welcome everyone. This is our very first initiative after this pandemic. So it's very interesting to see so many people are joining us. It's very amazing. Santosh was very keen to start this for a while. But it is good that all of us, all from the Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, all this Sangam is coming here, triplet. So it's very interesting to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we have a lot of speakers, almost 7 speakers lined up. There are a lot to offer. There are so many things to share up, how we can actually embrace the opportunity. I believe every challenge is an opportunity. So this is a challenge. Okay, we have been thrown, we have been given. We were not earlier prepared, but now we are ready. So yeah, we are here and we are gonna embrace it onwards. So as APJ Abdul Kalam says, all birds find shelter during a rain, but eagle avoids rain by flying above the clouds. So we're gonna be an eagle who can fly above the cloud and find out our own opportunity. So our future is going to define by how we are going to solve our challenges. That is a very thoughtful initiative by our management. Thank you so much, Santosh, and all the management team for initiating this and bringing all the community together. I would like to explain a bit about ANZ India Business Chamber. People who don't know, for our guest today, especially who are first time joining us, and I would like to explain a bit who we are, what we do. So ANZ India Business Chamber is a non-profit organization working closely with the business community, government, and other trade promotion council in India, Australia, and Singapore to promote and facilitate international business exchange. That's our motto. Chamber's success lies in its large network of business contacts. It's focused on young entrepreneurship and accent on digital business, a significantly marketing-oriented approach, and not just the international business community. While all these years, the Chamber's major focus was on the promotion of Indo-Australian, to establish a great reputation to the bilateral space. The Chamber has an advisory board and people of eminence of the industry, which numbers 15 from India and another 14 from Australia. The Chamber, and many of us are already here, and we are thank you for all the guests to joining us today. The Chamber also has an MOU with the prestigious Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Queensland is one of its international strategy partner in Australia. As the next destination of our focus, the Chamber has just constituted a board in Singapore with 3 members, and we are planning to have 5 board members from that region very soon. We are actually growing there. Very, very thankful for people who are joining, and it's growing there. Very interesting. Business matching is the central focus of the Chamber, and we have successfully done a number of hand-holding between India and Australian companies. We have now started this process with the business community in Singapore as well. Please watch out the space for our upcoming events. We will keep you posted. Not to forget, our directive will be out soon, so we'll be distributing that too as well. So keep checking our mails. In your email box, we will be actually distributing very, very soon all these informations. Thank you for joining once again the Triangle of Business Opportunity Initiative from Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. And I'm really deeply thanking all the guests from all the members and welcoming you deep-heartedly. Okay, so we have around every speaker. I would request please stick to your plan. It's 10 minutes, and there are a lot to offer, and there are a lot to learn. You can ask your question. We are having our question answer session as well. So if you want, you can actually drop your question in the chat box, and we will be taking more relevant question after all speakers are done. So before any further delay, I would like to invite Matthew McMillan. Is Matthew McMillan?
Yes.
Please join so that, welcome our guests and speakers and everyone here.
Yes, thank you, Priya. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt McMillan. I'm a partner at McCullough Robertson Lawyers in Sydney, Australia, and a local board member of the ANZ Business Chamber. I'd like to start by welcoming Mr. Santosh, Managing Director of the Chamber, who is given responsibility for organising this event to the board members of New South Wales. I also welcome the other board members from Australia, from Singapore and India, members of the Chamber, government representatives, executives, and others who are participating in this webinar today. Thank you for joining us. As Priya mentioned, we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers today exploring the topic of Australia, India, and Singapore, a triangle of business opportunities. And it's really exciting that we've been able to bring these three countries together, particularly as we start to look beyond to a post-COVID world. Indo-Australian trade currently stands at around $31 billion, which is significant, but there's so much more potential for Indian and Australian trade and investment to expand well beyond this. If we take Australia's two-way trade with Asian nations as a comparison, that currently stands at triple that figure at 93 billion, and yet with half the population of India. All of the settings for increased Indo-Australian trade and investment are there. For Australia, India stands as a counter pivot to China. India is one of the fastest growing economies of the world on account of its young population, with 50% of the population under 25 years of age, its internet penetration, with 560 million active internet users, and as Prime Minister Modi recently observed, for the first time ever, there are now more rural internet users than urban users in India, creating huge opportunities in 5G, big data and analytics, IoT, blockchain, and a whole host of new and emerging digital technologies. And of course, there's also India's increasing urbanisation. Coupled with this, there's also so much that Australia and India have in common. A similar heritage that comes from being part of the Commonwealth, the ease that comes from doing business in English, and of course, we can't forget a mutual love of cricket. The Australian government has also put its weight behind enhancing economic ties with India, having formally endorsed the India Economic Strategy in 2018, which is an ambitious vision for bilateral trade and investment by the year 2035. And it's exciting to see that India is moving up in the ranks of the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index from number 142 in 2015 to 63 in 2020. So that's a jump of 79 spots in just 5 years and comes off the back of sweeping investment, legal and tax reforms across the country. While these settings pave the way for increased trade and investment, there is, as I mentioned, still so much untapped potential. And this is where Singapore has a particularly important role to play. Singapore, as we know, is a wealthy and prosperous nation with thriving trade and finance sectors. Its trade network is extensive with some 20 free trade agreements and 31 trading partners. As our Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison observed on his visit to Singapore in June 2019, Singapore perhaps is the best example on the planet of the success and prosperity that flow when a country connects with the rest of the world and opens its markets. As well as being one of the easiest countries globally to do business with, Singapore boasts a pro-business environment, which is fueled by significant tax advantages, including its low corporate tax rate. And these advantages mean that Singapore is a crucial conduit for Australian companies looking to pivot investments into India, and likewise for Indian companies to use Singapore as a pivot to invest into Australia. And to give a sense of what that conduit looks like in terms of numbers of Australian and Indian companies in Singapore, there are now over 1,000 Australian companies with a presence in Singapore. Companies which, for the main, have a much better appreciation for business opportunities into India than their Australian counterparts. And similarly, there are over 2,000 Indian companies that now have a presence in Singapore and are able to effectively utilise that presence as a front office to increase their visibility in global markets and to use that as a springboard to invest into other markets like Australia and to attract investment back into India. So appreciating that intersection of the three countries and the strategic importance of Singapore and facilitating Indo-Australian trade is key to unlocking and realising much of the untapped potential for increased trade and investment between our two nations. And so against that backdrop, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our distinguished panel of speakers today, who will each share with us some of their own lived experiences and observations on business trends and opportunities that are opening up across the three regions. With us today, we have Mr. Daryl Chambers, Director and Founder of the M2M Group in Melbourne, Australia. Mr. Eli Bernstein, Chief Executive, Cryptic in Perth, Australia. Mr. Anindya Mazumdar, Partner at Singhania & Co. in Bangalore, India. Dr. C. Velan, City Head, Chennai Operations Capital Land in Chennai, India. Mr. Suresh Ranganathan, Vice President and Head of Business Unit BFS Aspire Systems in Singapore. Mr. Nitin Savara, Partner International Tax and Transaction Services, Ernst & Young in Gurgaon, India. And Mr. Brett Moorgas, Director, Analyst and Advisory Relations, Asia Pacific, Middle East, HCL Technologies in Sydney, Australia. So I welcome each of our distinguished speakers, and I will now hand back to you, Priya, to introduce our first speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for that. Thank you. It was really amazing. So I would like to invite Daryl from Chamber Director, M2M Connectivity Pty Limited. Prior to establish M2M Connectivity, M2M1 Daryl worked for 10 years at Ericsson in the number of roles, including management of Ericsson Mobile Division in Australia and Director of Ericsson Global Satellite Phone Business. Daryl was also founding and owner of M2M Connectivity, established in 2002 as a value-added distributor of cellular M2M component into Australia and New Zealand. In January 2020, Saira Wireless acquires the business, and Daryl now worked on a strategy with the Saira Wireless looking to expand opportunities in Australia and the region. So I would like to invite Daryl now. Please take your space. It's your stage. You want to present? So you share your screen, please. Daryl, you there? I can't hear him. Daryl, you there?
Daryl need to unmute the button.
Yeah, I think you need, please.
Unmute button, I think it's on mute.
Daryl, you there?
I'm here. I was muted Priya by yourself, I think. So.
But
Priya?
Yeah, I'm already muted everyone.
I think you might have.
Yeah, you there?
We can't hear you, Daryl.
I think you're on mute, Daryl.
Unmute.
Daryl, we can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself.
Only host can unmute. Okay.
Host is
Super, nice. Wow. போட்டிங்களா சரி நான்
Chat.
very good. Thank you so much. நான் உங்களுக்கு
I can't do anything here.
இல்ல முக்கியம் அது ரொம்ப முக்கியம்.
We can hear you now, Daryl. We can hear you.
You can hear me? I can't unmute myself, Priya, because I think you've muted me.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening, but I'll unmute you again. So let's see how it goes. Yeah? So I would request everybody else to please mute yourself. Gopi, can you mute yourself? Madhusudan, please.
Daryl, we can hear you, and everyone else, can you please go on mute?
Yeah, I think the problem was I was muted by Priya, so I couldn't uncontrol
Yeah, because when I'm unmuting everybody, you are also getting unmuted.
We'll do our best. So if everyone can mute their computers, that would be great. I'll start this again. So thank you, Priya, for having me here and inviting me on to speak. We've got a very broad audience today. So what I thought I would do today was give a broad overview of the industrial IoT market, what some of the activities we do and some of the key learnings we have made in this market. As Priya mentioned, you know, we were a small company based in Australia. We've now been acquired by a large global IoT M2M provider in Sierra Wireless. So we'll talk about that. We'll have a look at the market size in the region, and also, I think most importantly from me to present here, some of our key learnings from 18 years in this business. So if I start off by doing this, what I thought I'd do first, and you don't have to read this text, I will work through this for you, is an example of a IoT project we're currently working on. And the point of this is to talk about how complex IoT can be. So in this case, a system integrator approached our company who they wanted to build a technology to monitor live animals on live animal exports on ships that move around the world. And the challenges here were to find technologies that A, would work on board ships, which is a very complex RF environment, and B, work legally when the ships hit ports in different parts of the world using technologies that weren't illegal to be used in those places. We worked in that project with the system integrator and the customer, and we went through a technology audit to look for a technology that would work that way. We eventually ended up on a technology called WirePass, which is a Bluetooth mesh technology that's already been used in shipping for container tracking by Maersk Line. So it had a very strong heritage of working in a tough environment, but also had the ability for us to add a lot of different sensors to the technology to allow us to do what this particular customer wanted. The idea of this technology, it's very cost effective. It was easy to install, 5-year battery life on the sensors. It met the requirements in terms of price. What we also need to do was make sure that that data was obtainable when the ships reached shore, but also if they were on the ocean and they needed to report daily updates of health of the animals, etc. So this is a reasonably complex project. We've worked with a number of providers of sensors, a number of RF providers, and working in a very tough environment. That's an example of an IoT project that's ongoing at the moment. If I look at where we've come from and where we are today, M2M connectivity, as Priya mentioned, we started in 2002. We were acquired in January 2020 by Sierra Wireless. In between that, we've sort of built a business that works with a number of different IoT M2M wireless brands, companies like Sierra Wireless, as well as a number of satellite operators, a number of short-range technology providers. We have a business that we built up since February 2011 that now has 300,000 connected devices under management, and we do that for the largest operator in Australia, Telstra. We also have built up businesses around device management, around building complex solutions for failover between cellular radio and satellite radio. And we continue to work, and we continue to work now under Sierra Wireless, and we're seeing strong growth. Today, if we look at our company today, we work in areas, so we provide hardware, we provide design services for our customers who are typically system integrators. We work on the airtime to make sure that the remote systems can be connected over a suitable airtime, a suitable carrier. We integrate that solution, and then we pass that business across to the next part of the value chain, which is typically a system integrator or consultancy firm who then can take that data and build the value from that data. If we look at some of the industries that are growing and booming in our region. So I count India, Australia, Singapore, and the region. Clearly, fleet transport telematics is a large and growing area. Wanting to know where not only your vehicles are, but where the things inside the vehicles are, making sure that the goods being carried have been treated properly. They're all huge growth markets at the moment. As an example, we have a project just starting in India to manage some of the electric rail rolling stock. That's a project that will be using cellular as primary, but we'll be using satellite as failover because there won't be continuous cellular coverage along the rail lines. Smart agriculture is a boom sector in Australia. It's becoming a boom sector, I should say. Some of the new technologies in IoT are allowing the farming sector to really pick up on automating and remote monitoring of their systems to give them added sort of productivity, improved performance in their growth. Utilities, we all have utilities. They're doing electricity, they're doing water, they're doing gas, they're doing sewage. They all benefit from putting remote monitoring and remote control of their systems in the field. In environments, I find environment an interesting one. We've done a lot of gas monitoring, dust monitoring, pollution monitoring. Right now in the COVID, we're not so polluted, not so unsure about what quality the air is, but clearly, as the economy builds up again, this will come back again and be a big issue. So monitoring things like diesel, gas particulates in the air and making sure that the suburbs and the towns are safe to breathe, the air is safe to breathe in those towns is an important exercise. And lastly, industrial M2M and IoT. We work there. It's about monitoring machinery, preventative maintenance, working in the mines to make sure that their systems are running properly. And it's an expanding and ever-growing industry. It's one of the beauties of IoT. If we look at the growth in the region, this is just a slide that John sent through to me. We're in the region with the highest growth. So in terms of IoT and industrial Internet of Things, the region we operate in is where it's going to happen. So let's hold on and grab some of this business. This is my last slide. So Priya, I hope I'm on time. I had sort of 4 key learnings that I've made out of working this industry for the last 18 years, plus a bit before that. First is that industrial IoT is complex. It's not a plug and play system. So there's no one company anywhere that's going to be able to provide everything to fulfill a true IoT project. And it's important that people understand you need to partner with the best in breed providers to make the best solutions. You cannot do it all on your own. And as an example, if you look at an IoT project, there's modems, there's hardware, there's gateways, there's mobile networks, there's billing systems, sensors, there's the cloud, there's what you do with the data at the other side of the cloud in AI, re-engineering the enterprise, machine learning. We talked this morning on a call about digital twins. It goes on. And I spoke at a conference a couple of years ago now with Microsoft, and their head of IoT believes that every IoT project has at least 10 to 15 providers involved in an individual project. So it's a complex business. You have to learn to partner. Secondly, no projects are the same. Every project's different. So while we say one solution won't fit all, of course there are building blocks that do fit, but it's critical to listen to what the individual customer needs. And at least so far, every customer needs something slightly different. So every project is unique. Third thing is that we are strongly of the view that testing is critical, that you don't roll these systems out without detailed long-term testing and trialing. Reasons for that: remote unmanned systems are incredibly expensive to fix later. It's also very useful to use this test period to capture issues that may happen in operations to avoid having to do fixes later. And lastly, it's important to prove the value of the project before full investment. So sometimes people think it's a good idea to measure something. We go through the process, they measure it, there's no value, we stop the project. It's better to do that than spend the money and then realise that. And lastly, the last piece I have to say for today is that rolling out an IoT network isn't the end, it's just the start. And we've seen a number of projects fail because of this reason. People often will think that, right, I've rolled out my sensor network, I'm done. The reality is that that's where the costs start. From there on, you now need to manage that network, you need to monitor that the system's working, you need to replace sensors, and on the other side, you need to be using that data sensibly to make meaningful decisions to start using the data to save money. So they're key findings from the industry for 18 years. I will hand back now to you, Priya, and take questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. It was a really nice presentation. Surinder Kaur actually mentioning it as well. Like it is a nice presentation. I'm from technology background, so it's amazing to see. We will take your questions, Surinder, a little later, but we're gonna move on to our next speaker. And we will keep moving and we'll take the question at the last. Apology for right now. So our next speaker is Ellie Bernstein. If please apology if I'm not pronouncing it right. Ellie is a lawyer, innovation strategist, and technologist with experience in fintech, regtech, and legal tech. Ellie founded Cryptic, Singaporean deep tech venture capitalist, and is currently establishing an Australian legal tech venture studio in conjunction with the innovative legal partner. Ellie has served on committees of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Western Australia and on a number of boards, including as president of the Australian Indian Business Council, Western Australia. Ellie is currently on the advisory board of the ANZ India Business Chamber. Welcome, Ellie, and over to you. You want to share your screen? Ellie. Ellie, you okay? I think you can unmute yourself because I have given the rights. Every participant can unmute and mute themselves. Okay, looks like Ellie has some trouble. Let's go to the next speaker if it's okay. Santosh, what do you say? Should we move on to the next one?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, because looks like Ellie has some trouble. Okay, we'll go to the next one and we'll come back to the Ellie. Okay, next speaker is Anindya Majumdar. Anindya Majumdar, an alumnus of NLSIU, partner of Singhania and Company, LLP, solicitor and advocate, is associated with the firm since last 15 years in the capacity of associate and a partner. Is also the location head of Bangalore branch office of Singhania and Company, LLP. He is having vast knowledge of corporate law, foreign direct investment related law, international trade law, and insolvency and bankruptcy code. So Anindya, you there?
Yeah.
It's over to you. Morning. Welcome, yes. And you can share your presentation.
Thanks, Priya. Good morning and good afternoon for Australians.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Warm greetings to distinguished speaker and participants. Firstly, I would like to express my gratefulness to ANZ Business Chamber and especially Mr. Santosh, Managing Director of the Chamber. You have gifted me this opportunity to interact with all of you, and I am thankful to all of you, especially Mr. Santosh. Well, today I am going to deliver my presentation. The topic is the recent amendments and initiatives the Government of India have taken towards the foreign direct investment. So let me allow to share my screen first.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So one second. Yeah. Well, so my topic is the recent government initiative and amendments for attracting FDI in India. In recent past, what Government of India has taken initiative to attract business and especially from Australian, to view the Australian business opportunity in India, Singapore business opportunity in India. I have tried to make this presentation. So when I say FDI, first we need to understand the meaning of FDI. It's in a general perspective, it means that if any investment comes from a foreign country to another country towards an entity to do the business, that is called FDI. But in a technical term, we can say that FDI is, is a significant non-debt financial resource for stimulating the economic growth by allowing the foreign companies. So as you know that without foreign collaboration or without foreign investment, not a single country can grow or can grow their business. So India also in this process having a very, very significant FDI from various countries. And today, being a fifth largest economy in this world, it's very, very lucrative and opportunities. Indian government is giving to the foreign investors. So, so for why, in which sector we can say that foreign investment can come. It can come through mergers. It can come through acquisition. It can come to services in various retail, manufacturing, and other sector. So how it can come? What is our government plan, or what is how government takes the FDI in India? There are two ways. One is automatic route, and another is government approval. Most of the things government has made the automatic route, 100% FDI. I am coming in my next slides. Few of the sectors I have picked up for business opportunities which we can see in India. So why, the next question is that why India is a target or destination for the FDI? Because first of all, I can say the government of India's policy and the infrastructure of to attract the foreign investment in India. Even India is currently at 10 FDI recipients. The number is position is number 10 in terms of for FDI recipients in all over in world. 51 billion US dollar 2019 India has received towards FDI. And the developing Asian region also, India is top 5. India is now coming within the top 5 host economics for FDI. So why India a so attractive place? First of all, the availability of the skilled labor. It's then operational cost is very, very low compared to other countries. Then infrastructure facilities. Government of India from past couple of years is doing a lot of infrastructure development where foreign company can come and do the business, and most effectively the business friendly policies framed by the government of India. So that these are the key points where investment come to India through FDI from the foreign countries. I will go to next slide. Here I am trying to represent the flow of FDI from past 1 year. It is sourced by the Reserve Bank of India, the Apex Bank of India, and we can see it is a million USD version. So you can easily see that how India is getting FDI, even though past 6 or 7 months we are in the pandemic situation. It's really it is going in a very positive way, and we are expecting that in the second quarter of this current financial year, it will hit some significant the level of FDI. So now I can move to next slide where the I'm trying to bring some particular sector where FDI is government of India has amended recently towards the FDI notes, FDI rules. First is civil aviation. It's a huge amendment came in March 2020 recently that up to 100% FDI government of India has opened in the civil aviation and the non-scheduled air transport services under the automatic route. So when I say under the automatic route, it means that there is no requirement of prior approval from the government of India or Reserve Bank of India before investment, before making the investment in Indian company. So this is very, very lucrative sector for from any part of the world. any business house who are into this sector, because India is having a huge large population and huge network. So civil aviation is really one of the lucrative sector for investment. Here we can see that non-scheduled air, the air transport 100% FDI they have opened. Even helicopter service, seaplanes is another one transport now incoming in India. Already I think in Kerala they have one company has started that seaplane services where government of India has opened 100% FDI through automatic route. And so this is one of the sector. The next sector is another catchy sector is insurance sector. So when we say the insurance sector, it was not earlier under the 100% FDI automatic route. Recently, 2020 month of February, Government of India again opened opportunity for the foreign investment in India, allowing foreign shareholding and the insurance intermediaries, companies, 100% FDI on the automatic route. So the company investment can come to Indian establishment, those who are into the intermediaries of insurance sector. So this is another, and you can see the right side of my slide. You can see the percentage of growth in the particular general insurance, life insurance. What is the percentage in India is having currently, and where the Indian insurance business can reach. So this is one of the lucrative sectors for foreign investors to invest in the insurance sector. So my next topic slide is regarding the food processing sector. Huge, the India is known by its population, and obviously in world we Indians are known by one of the foodies. So this sector is also very, very attractive for foreign investor. You can see that in my slide. You can see that here also Government of India has opened its open for for investment to the extent of 100% investment. But yes, under the automatic route for food processing unit. Trading, including the e-commerce of the food products. In India there is a brand called Swiggy, Zomato. They are having huge foreign investment, and there are only 2 participants right now in India. So it's again it is a huge market opportunity. Business houses from abroad, they have opportunity in India. So next my slide will be in e-commerce. We forget about the pandemic situation, that we are not going out, we have to do our transaction through online. Apart from this situation, Indian market in e-commerce is huge. You can say that by 2024 government is expecting around 100 billion USD business, massive growth government is expecting in the online retail industry. So government here, it's a little, they have opened obviously 100% FDI, but in a only single brand retail, not the multi-brand retail till now. Now the multi-brand retail, they have opened 51%, where there were earlier it was not there at all. So Government of India is strategically Government of India is offering or inviting rather foreign investors to India and use our huge, customer-based, consumer-based market, and use investment-friendly, atmosphere to invest in the Indian company and do the business. So my next slide will be an very, very, I can see today in this, presentation, I will request you to look into this sector, mining. Recently, very recently, Government of India has amended their FDI into the mining policy, and you see the growth opportunity. Government of India is telling only 20% of the total reserve have been mined till now. Please remember 20%. So 80% reserve still India is having for mining. And we are the second largest producer of coal all over India. And our production is almost 700 million tons in financial year 2018, because I don't have 2019 data. So obviously it has, increased from 2018. So why I want to focus in this sector, because here you need a technology. Definitely government, Indian mining companies are there, but they may not having the technology, mining technology. So we can, means government, Indian business house, will be helped by the foreign technology in this sector, in the mining sector, where 100% FDI also is available, and that is automatic route. So there will be no bureaucracy or bureaucrat, hitch or approvals. Because see, I don't know, some, past couple of years or long back, we have certain, we observe that business houses from abroad, they have certain, in their mind, that in India means bureaucratic, obstructions and some the compliance, lots of. But believe me, Government of India nowadays is doing very, very, strategically, opening up the market for the foreign investors, and they are doing that infrastructure also. They are developing the laws, and as you can see how they are, opening up the sector wise where foreign investment can come. Now, the second thing is that today we are talking about India, Australia, and Singapore. So definitely India and Australia, beyond the cricket and hockey and IPL and Big Bash, we are having huge education sector, cross migration, business. So it is one of the sector where we can look into it, where both the countries we can exchange the programs in the education field. The Australian universities can come to India. Indian universities can tie up with the Australian university in the student exchange program. And this market, we are having a lot of similarities in terms of the market and the investment. And so this is very, very profitable, and I can say the significant impact Australian investment can have on in Indian business sector. So this is a last my thing in the conclusion, that I can say only one thing is that we are having high inflow of FDI. India is recognized, and we are expecting in the second half of 2020 this we'll come back. We will come out from the COVID-19 pandemic situation, and our growth will be almost 6.7% in the next financial year. Everything is set for the overseas companies. We are having the positive factors. Government is doing a lot of work, lot of reforms are coming. We are having the Making India project, where investment can come and we can generate product and services. And moreover, in this situation, there are a lot of investment came, almost USD 10 million new investment. Google has already announced in the mid week of July, in this month. And behind Google, Amazon and Facebook also, they are coming to invest in India in this current scenario. So what I am trying to tell, that the scenario in India is very, very positive. Although we are facing, all over world is facing pandemic situation, but here, due to the government initiative, due to the favorable infrastructure of the business, FDI and the foreign collaboration, definitely India is having very, very favorable situation in the coming very, very few months. So
Okay, thank you.
With this, I want to conclude my presentation. If any questions, you can please send me the mail, or after the presentation, you can ask me the questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Santosh and ANZ Business Chamber.
Thank you, Anindya, for your time. Yeah, if anyone have any question, they can actually ask us on the chat, and the speakers can take it personally. Otherwise, we will talk in the end of the question. A gentleman was asking slide 6. You can ask question personally in a private chat, and you will be answered for that. So please feel free to do that. Okay. So we are gonna go to the Ellie now. Ellie,
Hi again. This time can you hear me, I hope?
Yeah, so I'm gonna introduce you again if somebody hasn't heard you that time. Ellie is a lawyer, innovation strategist and technologist with experience in fintech, tech, and legtech. Ellie founded Cryptic, a Singaporean deep tech venture catalyst, and is currently establishing an Australian legal tech venture studio in conjunction with the innovative legal partner. Ellie has served on committee of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Western Australia and on a number of boards, including as president of the Australian Indian Business Council, Western Australia. Ellie is currently in the advisory board of the NG India Business Chamber. Welcome, Ellie. Sorry for the last time, but I'm sure
we all sorted now. Thank you, Priya, and thank you, Santosh, for organizing this all, and also to the previous speakers. Very, very interesting topic.
Floor is yours. You want to share the slide, something?
I will in a moment.
Yes.
Actually, I can start that now, and then I'll speak. Can you see that now? Can you see something? Are you able to see that? I'll present if that's better.
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to go back to what Matthew McMillan was saying about, and go back a bit more bird's eye view about the trade between Australia and India. And then I know later on we'll have some speakers, including Nitin and Brett, specifically looking at the IT sectors, both in India and Australia, and they'll probably go into a bit more specifics. I sort of wanted to bridge those two, to bridge the bird's eye view of the trade between Australia and India, and then why we should be focusing more on sort of tech-related trade. So, recently, I don't know, even throughout the pandemic, the Australian-Indian relations are very, very strong. Certainly in words they are. And we even saw in June, our respective prime ministers had a virtual meeting, and they upgraded the relationship from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership, a CSP. And our trade between us is you could say is significant, but not significant enough. I think as Matthew pointed out, it is still a third of our trade with our other Asian partners. And what will happen now, specifically as China is, the issues around trade with China keep evolving, and let's keep that diplomatically. I think that presents an opportunity for India to become a strong trading partner with Australia as well. And similarly, Singapore has got opportunity to capitalize on Hong Kong's fall, to be frank, right? So a lot of financial centers and a lot of investments that should have gone into Hong Kong will now be going into Singapore going forward. So I certainly think the Australian-Singapore India sort of trilateral relationship is one that makes sense, and one that at the moment can gain on some geopolitical events that are occurring. Now, one of the issues that we've seen throughout the trade between Australia and India, it's been very much what I call sort of dumb trade, as in it's unprocessed goods primarily, it's primary goods. And you see, if you look at the chart on the right, compare the primary goods. So that's the blue is a primary, so that's over 5 years. So the blue ones, right? Compare the primary exports to India with all our other exports, which are basically invisible, right? You can't see there any, so that's a simply transformed manufactured goods or elaborately transformed manufactured goods. They're almost not visible. The other thing that we have is in terms of services, basically all the services exports to Australia that Australia exports is educational services. That is the vast majority of the export. There's nothing beyond university students. There's not a lot there in terms of services. We do import services, which would be primarily IT services. So I do think there's a need to bridge that gap. And if you look at the left chart, that's Australia's exports and Australia's imports. Australia's exports have always been quite higher than Australia's imports from India. So this is from the Australian perspective. And there's definitely the only way to really bridge that gap for India is really to start selling and start trading non-primary goods. And these are either manufactured goods or, in this case, the case I'll be speaking to is
manage them. Yes, we need to make money. We need to invest money. We need to do everything. But they don't.
Okay, thanks. Sir.
Because by the time
Hello.
Correct. तो अगर उसको सिस्टम के अंदर डाल दिया और उसको बता दिया कि भाई तू अपना काम करते रहे, तू नौकरी कर रहा है, नौकरी बिजनेस चला रहा है तो बिजनेस चला। सिस्टम let the system do the hard pushing for you, right? All you know.
Ellie, please continue.
The funnel.
Please, everybody, unmute yourself, please.
Run your business. Kata, I can do that. Right? So this kata, I can do that.
you can hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ellie. Please continue.
Well, I was comparing the venture capital industry between Australia and India. I'm not sure how much of that was lost. Is that the VC industry in India is roughly, in terms of investments made per quarter, it's roughly 10 times bigger than the venture capital industry. So I do think there's certainly scope for the VC investment and tech investment, cross-border investment between our two nations, and particularly if we look into Singapore as well. And there's certain areas that I think could be of interest, and these are ones that are currently hot. EdTech is certainly something we've seen now with remote learning, biotech, and then there's obviously deep tech data. We heard about IoT. That's something that's growing in supply chain. Blockchain was probably overhyped to begin with, but will be there as part of an industrial solution. And then there's energy, water, and I think we'll hear later today about neobanks as well. So these are certainly some areas of opportunity for scope. But I guess my main point is that we should go away from just trading primary resources and just exchanging things that don't have any intellectual common value, and move towards things that have a lot more intellectual capital. And that's actually the binds that tie nations. So if we're moving towards from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership, that should also include a trade that's on a more equal terms and not one that has such a big gap between the two. So that's in short my presentation. And if you have any questions later on, I'll follow up with that as well. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Ellie. Sorry for all that technical issues. Mr. Wellan is the next. And I would like to introduce Dr. C. Wellan. Dr. C. Wellan is presently working as City Head Chennai Operation, Capital Land. In the past, CEO and Trial Info Park Limited for 10 years, among others, and education decorate in sustainable designing of green IT building. So over to you, Dr. Wellan. You there?
Yes, hi Priya. Am I audible?
Yes, yeah, you are.
Are you able to see the screen also? No.
Yes, we can see.
Right. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Santosh. To start with, of course, Priya, this is a really great opportunity for me to connect with these stalwarts from
Thank you for joining.
various countries. Okay. Good. So my topic, what I want to discuss at this point of time in next 10 minutes is that to specifically talk about real estate sector, possibilities, advantages, potential in India. Am I audible again? Sorry.
Yes, you are. You are. We
Okay,
are very
good.
clear.
So I'm going to start with the two sectors to specifically, because the time is also 10 minutes. So mainly on the commercial and office sector, how the Indian market was behaving, and currently the COVID has put in a lot of challenges. And as you said, Priya, the challenges are giving us an opportunities for looking differently, how we can able to come out of these challenges and shine again. So those are few things which I want to share in the commercial market. Quickly, that this is that snapshot. If you look at in India, we have almost 638 million square feet of office space right now in India. Of which, if you look at it on an average for the last 5 years, we have the supply low, but absorption is high, because there were supplies in the before 2015, multiple million stock was vacant, and we could be able to manage to absorb all these things, and the vacancy level has dropped very drastically below 6-7% in the year 2019. It means you see 47 million is average absorption last 5 years. And it provides a background for all of you. There is a huge potential for this office space in India. With that background of that, if you look at where is the business coming from for commercial office, predominantly for that IT office requirement. The major drivers for this commercial office space is from the IT business in India. And the unfortunate this COVID issue has propped up. But if you look at Q1 in 2020 of this year, still absorption was very good. In fact, actually, if you look at it, almost 11.7. But post-COVID, if you compare last year and the current year, our absorption has dropped by 30%, almost 30%. It's a panicking volume. In fact, if you look at it. However, leaving aside these challenges, what is that is making India is that this is a short term. I always believe, or that industry also believes, the pandemic situation is not going to be impacting this sector for long. Probably a year from now, also we may be having an impact, but we are not foreseeing for long run, because everybody is looking at in different angle. If you look at what is that we have to do in the occupier's point of view, they look at it business continuity plan, because they cannot look at it, this kind of pandemic affects their business. There will be technical tools and a lot of technology which will be used for remote working. Parallelly, they work from home and office on rotation basis. There are sanitizing and all those things which they are looking at it. But developers, currently, there are certain projects on hold because of the pandemic situation. But quickly introducing a lot of technological factors, which I will talk in the next slide, how we can go to manage the new normal. The developers are very bullish about bringing back that momentum in the construction industry, and the industry investor point of view. Of course, my earlier speaker and India spoke a lot of potential in India about the investor point of view. This is the new normal I'm talking about it. See, there is some sort of a talk going on in the industry. Work from home is going to be the future option for office operations or IT operations. Believe me, everything cannot be handled from home. It is, see, India per se, if you look at it, people are very socially connected. We need to connect with the people, and working from home, confining yourself within the four walls is not going to be the future. Maybe it is short term, it will, or maybe increasing to 20% or 30% of people still work from home, but it is not going to be a reality for long run. Probably it will continue, assuming that 15-20% is going to be there work from home. But the new norm of a social distance between the people in office, which is going to compensate the space demand in India for commercial office space. That is what the real estate people are predicting. Second is that the touchless solutions. We need to go with the technological innovations actually in order to provide them the comfort for the people working in the office premise. They are all safe. They are all having every kind of environment which is taking care of their working atmosphere. So the touchless solutions, right from entry to lift entry to office, everything is touchless spaces, digital mode we are bringing in. And that, as I said, the per person ratio is increasing. with respect to social distancing recruitment, indoor, all these measures are being put in as a new normal requirement in office space. Thereby, we can able to enhance that confidence of the people who can come to that office still and work. Having said that, not all the IT businesses can work from home or office, commercial offices can work from home, because the manufacturing sector, all these back offices for manufacturing, automobile, power, oil sector, you name anything, all those people require a different kind of bandwidth, different kind of machines to work with. That kind, what I refer to is that computers and the softwares, which cannot be operative from home. So all the more reasons that there is an opportunity for this commercial office space to come back to normal. Probably it takes in a year or so, but it will come back. In nutshell, if you look at it on the commercial space, I want to summarize here. Office and warehouse sectors are least impacted at this point of time due to this COVID. Whereas retail, yes, has affected badly to some extent. Retail, I'm talking about real estate point of view, but e-commerce is going to grow. The warehousing data centers will see the boost because all that IT or commercial offices or BCP plants are providing most of the opportunities for that data centers and warehousing. The office space, as I mentioned, will have a short-term supply demand lack challenges, but in the long run, India's attractiveness and technology outsourcing hub remains very strong. So I am foreseeing there will be a good growth in that office sector. In terms of investors' point of view, if you look at it, they are a bit cautious in the short term, but consolidation may happen in the long run in the industry, which provide momentum for the investors. And as this reads, if you look at it in India, the Mindspace reads, which was recently and in the public communication, which is providing a lot of confidence for the real estate markets, which is going to create much more confidence in the market fundamentals. I have few more slides, but I think understanding the time constraint, I'm not talking about residential or retail, but industrial sector, I want to touch it upon a bit actually. This is going to grow heavily. As my friend was talking about, Andrea was explaining, Indian government proactive measures in terms of FDI flows are a lot of attractive corporate tax. If you look at it, 17.7 as against Japan and other comparisons I have given here, 31, 25 and Vietnam's of 20. India is a very, very attractive as of now in terms of manufacturing setup actually. And Make in India kind of arrangements are going to pull that lot of industries from various China and all other places to India, which is going to provide a lot of opportunity. Leaving aside all these matters, between Australia and India is always a lot of a connect in terms of services. For example, I'm talking about a construction side. We learn a lot from them, from Australia, like for example, alliance method or various methodologies which are commonly used in construction sector, which is going to add value for the speedy development of a real estate sector. Thereby, the industry, construction industry will bounce back very fast. The COVID is a short term, and I feel personally, in terms of investors' point of view, in terms of developers' point of view, in terms of end users' point of view, this industry is going to show very significantly high potential in the years to come. So there is a lot of opportunities in this sector also. Thank you very much. I'll take the questions in the end. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if anybody has question, they can also privately chat or send everyone question, and I'm sure our speakers will be able to take personally on the chat itself. So if in case a common question you want to ask, everybody else will be aware as well. So we are gonna go ahead with our next speaker. And I would like to welcome and invite our next speaker, Mr. Suresh Ranganathan. Mr. Suresh Ranganathan is the VP and Head of Business Unit, BFS at Aspire System in Singapore. He is business leader and 2 decades of experience with more expertise built in business and delivery management, regional sales and operations, human resource management, customer experience, and key account management. Let's have a teleconversation if it is required later, but ask questions on the chat. Over to you, Mr. Suresh. Are you able to unmute yourself, Suresh? Yeah. Okay. Please share your slide if you want. Rest all
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you very much, Priya, for that introduction. Good afternoon to all the members from India and Singapore, and good evening to members from Australia. Thank you for this opportunity once again, Priya and Santosh, for inviting me to speak about the rise of neobank and challenger banks. As Priya introduced, I currently head the Banking and Financial Services Business Unit for Aspire Systems, and I'm currently based out of Singapore. Thank you. So, just a quick, in terms of the neobanks growth trajectory, if you see, it's currently the net worth of neobank is around 18.6 billion. And it is expected to grow a minimum of 21 times year on year as a growth that is predicted by Everest and Gartner. And what it means to us is it is likely to hit about $400 billion market potential by 2026, which is about 5 years down the line. And just to give a perspective of what kind of funding that it is secured is about $2.5 billion of funding, which is never seen before. That's a quick growth predicted. Moving on to the number of neobanks by founding year, it all started off in 2004. Where it started off with 6 between 2004 to 2010, where the year 2010 has been the real start of the neobanks, the impact. And as you can see, the number of banks that has come in between 2011 to 2015 is about 28, and then about 45 between 2016 to 2020. In this entire era of what you see from 2004 to 2020, the year 2013 is actually the key impact where the epicenter of the neobanks have been captured by the Europe, while the other markets opened up after 2013. Moving on to some of the neobanks around the world that you could see, the Atom Banks and Revolut, Tide and N26, Monzo are the few early players that actually had a field day by the media, and the customers had gone frenzy about these neobanks that came into the market. While you could also see the spread of the neobanks in Australia and in the Indian markets, but predominantly the epicenter is being around Europe, and the North American and South American markets are also picking up. Now the difference, right? The neobank versus challenger banks. I presume all of us would know the brick and mortar, the traditional banks, but the key difference that we have to understand is between the neobanks and the challenger banks. The neobanks tend to focus on a particular segment, like the SMEs or the gigs, thin files, or the full banking license, and do not have a full banking license. And they leverage the challenger banks license. As in the challenger banks cover the entire gamut of banking operations and have a full banking license. So these are the fundamental difference that one should have an understanding on. So what makes the neobanks so special is pretty much not seen in the market, no physical branches, no hidden costs, and easy to operate, and pretty much the banks in a pocket, and offerings depend on licensing. So this is a fundamental, that makes them stand out from the rest of the crowd. Now, the reasons for the neobanks boom is something that broadly I would like to classify it with market opportunities and the promising growth that it has. Obviously, the bank in a pocket, the mobile service penetration, the underserved and the neglected segments, and the incumbents' lack of transparency is what it presents as a market opportunities. And the promising growth, technology being an enabler has now taken the center stage, and COVID has given another reasons for it to be take the center stage, and no longer an enabler, but pretty much the driver is what it has taken. And the accessibility and transparency and competitive interest rates. So these are the reasons for the boom. Now, the neobank niches, if you look at it, I would broadly like to classify them into three categories of people that it is actually addressing. One is the gigs, who are those freelancers, contractors, and anybody with more than a single source of income, and not necessarily have a good track record of the credit scoring. By the way, the economy growth for the gig economy is expected to be at about $455 billion by end of 2023. So that is the market potential it has. The pain points: inconsistent income patterns, no employer provided benefits, and unusual tax requirements. So these are actually the market pain points from the gigs. Now the next one, and the gig, who are the neobanks that is actually serving the gig economy or the gig group of people? You see, in US you have Oxygen, that is actually providing AI-enabled auto savings for this particular group of people. And Shine, if you look at it in France, they're productivity tools for freelancers. Right? These are some of the USPs, but broadly they are actually focusing on the gig economy. And you have Holvi in Spain and N26 in Germany. And the unbanked, the number two, is primarily the focusing on the countries like China, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and Latin America countries where the traditional banking space is quite complicated. So therefore, these are the customer base that is actually kind of concentrated. Again, the market pain points are non-accessible banking infrastructure, unsatisfactory or non-existent credit scores, making them ineligible for loans or other credit products. And the World Bank has reported about 1.7 billion people across the world do not have a bank account. So that is a huge market, and pretty much you see any kind of technology innovation in the banking ISV space is towards this particular unbanked population. For example, your inclusive banking suite by likes of the Temenos or likes of Thought Machines of the world are the ones that is actually pretty much trying to serve the unbanked population. The market players for the unbanked, you see Albo in Mexico, Nubank in Brazil, Piggy West in West Africa, and Kakao in Korea. The thin files, very interesting market segment, set of customer base, immigrants and students, who literally do not have papers. So this is again insignificant or no credit history at all and limited earning potentials. So as you see, the risk is also high, and therefore we are yet to see some realistic product offerings for the thin files. But there are players who are actually looking at monetizing this particular group of people, likes of Moniz in UK, Koyo again in the UK, and you have Moneytrans in Belgium and Timo in Vietnam, servicing the thin files. And the most important segment, the SMEs in the lending space, the market pain points are working capital crunch and inadequate access to formal credit is one of the key SME segments that is actually about 50% of a country's GDP and accounts for a total 60 to 70% of the employment, the SME segment. And I think this is where the boom is actually going to happen. And we're all seeing that. And you see, as representing Aspire, I had a direct responsibility of fulfilling Judo Bank's the technology needs to go cater to the neobank segment of SME in Australia, and pretty much it's changed the banking landscape. And when it started off with the lending product for SMEs, and later secured full banking license, and they've received a deposit of about $1 billion in last 12 months from its operations. So it is a remarkable change in the way that people bank, and it is widely being the new normal. You could also see Open Bank in India partnering with ICICI, and you have Expense in UAE and Fluidly in UK, pretty much focusing on the SME banks sector. And the neobanks partnerships, pretty much they operate on an ecosystem like any other industry. So say they partner with banks for their banking license so that they can put their products and start serving the customer. The customer data is reciprocated. The customer first approach is gone, and now it is data first approach has come in, and they have taken the center stage. And of course, the security and loyalty is what the bank's partnership that they look for. And then the neobanks partner with fintechs for an up-to-date API and seamless integration. Again, this is more of a tapping the best in products from the marketplace ecosystem. And you have the tech giants where the neobank partners with tech giants for sound funding backups and versatile customer base. As you can see, there's some examples that I have stated here. Open Bank's partnership with ICICI and Starling and its 11 fintech partners. And you have Google Pay's smart checking accounts in partnership with Citibank. So such is the kind of partnerships ecosystem has been evolved over from neobank. The neobank's building blocks are putting business, technology, and regulatory. Pretty much, from a business point of view, know your target segments, know your the products that is actually going to cater to the segment that you wanted to focus on, and decide your partnership. These are three major drivers that is actually running the business, defining the business goals. The technology has become it's placed correctly in the slide, which has taken the tech center stage, and finding the right core platform is the key to the to make it a success, because there is a sandbox requirement by the regulators, and you have 6 months from the time you have the sandbox requirement to go live. So choosing the right technology is the key thing. And then the abiding with the regulatory tech, which is actually going to be the next big thing. post-COVID, the RegTech will actually take even more involvement in these with the way that the banking is done. Just last slide. I have not. I hope I have not taken much of your time, but so what our journey personally, we have involved in bringing Judo Bank, SOS, a specialized bank in Cambodia, and SME Bank, which is a subsidiary of a larger holding of Cambodian investment holding, and National Bank of Kuwait. So these are the 4 banks that we have impacted through our CX and OX services suite. That's been our neobank journey, and it is continuing. The last slide is the company that I represent. We're about 3,000 people and an end-to-end technology partner for the disrupted and the disruptors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Mr. Suresh. We will move on. So we are gonna go to the next speaker, Nitin Savara. Nitin Savara is a partner in international tax and transaction practice in Ernst & Young and has over 20 years of M&A and structuring experience. Nitin has been recognized amongst the world's leading M&A advisory by Who is Who Legal consistently for 3 years. He has also been recognized as a leading tax advisor by International Tax Review in the past. Nitin was an instructor for the cross-border structuring and international tax planning at International Bureau of Fiscal Documentation. In the startup ecosystem, Nitin has advised many companies and also investors on various matters involving early stage startups and unicorn across sectors, including e-commerce, marketplace, media, fintech, and education technology. So over to you, Nitin. I'm sure you are ready with your slides. There you go. Can you hear me?
Thank you so much for that.
Yes,
Priya. Thank you so much for that. Good afternoon, everyone. And firstly, a big thank you to the ANZ India Business Chamber for inviting us to this forum. We are going to spend the next 10 minutes talking about the startup ecosystem. And I think a very good base has been set by Daryl, Anindya, Eli, Suresh in terms of the key sectors. So let me not spend more time and start with the reality that is COVID-19 today. COVID-19 has, of course, accelerated the transition to the digital economy. There is a need for various sectors to grow, and that is immediate. If you see the 4 key sectors that I have listed in my slide and the 2 that I can't do without, you'll note that each of them is actually a sector that was there and it was around in India, but its importance and the requirement for having more and more technology in these sectors is even more evident today. I'm sure we are all aware that India is not a country that is used to working from home or studying from home. It is there, but it is not significant. Yeah. Now, if you look at the first sector, education, this is a time when learning has actually been reshaped. Each person is expected to have some access to a learning tool, which is going to be a laptop, a phone, or an iPad. And with this, all the edtech companies are on a new high, be it normal K-12 education, be it online tuitions, or even development courses for professionals and kids. If you look at all the coding courses that have come out for kids, it is just mind-boggling. In fact, over the past 15 days, if you pick up the newspaper, you will see at least one transaction in the edtech space happening. The last transaction, Vedantu has landed $100 million. There is one more that was announced yesterday, but even staying with what is more confirmed as per the newspapers, this is one area where there is immense opportunity. Interestingly, even EY, where I am, we've offered a tech MBA in collaboration with HULT, which is a university in the US. So these are the kind of partnerships that are also happening. And that's where education is going to go. In fact, most of the unicorns believe that education, even delivery, are not going to go down. The percentage or the acceptability to people is only going to go up higher. As I move to delivery, in fact, delivery has many, many parts to it. It could be your marketplaces like Amazon. It could be online grocers like Grofers, or food delivery like Zomato and Swiggy. And it could be online pharmacies. The very fact that we are all being expected to be at home means that we are relying more and more on all the delivery outlets or all the delivery startups and unicorns that are around us, whether they are local or global. Next, actually, this should be the most important, but again, as you can see, even in my slide, it's come to number 3 as health. I think health and healthcare are going to be impacted and are already very impacted by all the technology. Leveraging on AI or artificial intelligence is critical. There are many AI startups in India on the health front, and these are startups which are looking to come out with more and more avenues to be able to recognize patients or to be able to recognize diseases based on multiple trends. I think with this, let me move to the 4th sector, where we are again seeing a lot of action and traction, which is the business to business or the B2B segment. I know Daryl's alluded to it, and Daryl's actually presented about IoT, AI, of course, robotics, SaaS models, machine learning. These are the areas where I think while the world is moving very quickly, even India at its end has started moving. And this is only increased in COVID times. There, most of the people are coming back to organizations asking for tech enablement. A lot of people had not given as much importance to these sectors earlier, or they may have given importance, but the acceptability rather to technology enablement has increased. As I said, this slide would not be complete without a reference to fintech, which is financial services and insurance, because, and as Suresh also mentioned, neobanks will be the future. Their digital banks are already in place. People are looking at giving loans online within 5 minutes, within 3 minutes. All this is possible only if we've got a very robust technology system to it. So these are the key sectors that we see will continue to attract a lot of investment and will be the so-called hotshots or emerging sectors over the next 6 months to a year at least, if not longer. The impact, of course, is expected to be long-term. Of course, when we are in India, and while Anindya has done a very good job of explaining all the related foreign investment regulations, I've tried to put out the top 5 highlights that can impact a startup or an investor or anyone looking to do any sort of a digital business in India. I'll spend just a few minutes on this slide, but let's look at it. Firstly, in terms of support to startups, the Indian government has also very well recognized this. There is an entire program for support to startups. Startups need to register with the government of India, a certain organization called DPIIT, and the regulations for such registered startups are eased in terms of law, in terms of tax, and even in terms of the ability to take external borrowings, which possibilities are not so much if you are not a registered startup. Of course, there are conditions for such registered startups, but for a small startup looking to venture into this domain, it is a good alternative that the government has brought up. Next is a very interesting development that came out on April 17th, 2020, where the government mandated that despite it having an automatic approval or no prior approval requirement for most sectors and investments in India, the law was amended to state that prior approval would be required for investment from neighboring countries which share their land border with India. Of course, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore are not amongst those countries, and that's good always. The key change was that this includes China as well. And it's not just the company that can be Chinese, even if the beneficial owner of an American company or a Singapore company is Chinese, again, prior approval is required from the government before investment. Now, this is very critical. In fact, it also opens up opportunities for other investors because startups need money today. And China has funded more than 2/3 of the large startups in India. In fact, there are all sorts of numbers that keep getting thrown around about the billions of dollars that China has invested, not just in the unicorns, but in various other startups. And that, of course, is true. So the next one is direct overseas listing of Indian companies. Again, this is interesting because it was announced on May 17th. The regulations are work in progress, but this will impact all our startups in the best way possible. We all know that there are various stock exchanges and markets, financial markets like Singapore, for example, which do enable overseas listing directly, and they also allow a larger pool of investors to come in. Once these regulations are in place, you should expect a lot of direct overseas listing of Indian companies and especially startups. The next is more about a restriction that we've got to be aware of. And Anindya did mention this in a slide on e-commerce, where he mentioned that multi-brand retail in India has got significant restrictions. If you look at any large company like Amazon, for example, it is always going to have a multi-brand retail, which means it is always going to sell a whole host of brands. Now, therefore, when in India, remember, retail is not permitted. The only way that a person can have this product or this business line is to have a marketplace model where you set up a marketplace and other sellers put up their products for selling. And therefore, what you earn is a commission and not really business profits from trading. The last is something where India is aligning itself to the global norms. And this is something to be aware of, whether you are an Indian startup paying Facebook in Ireland, or whether you are a company in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, or anywhere in the world and looking to provide a marketplace for providing goods and services. Remember, digital tax is there in India. It applies to everyone, even if a non-resident or an overseas company is selling in India. And its scope has just been widened again with effect from April 1, 2020. With this, let me move to my last slide. And I'm going to request my colleague Ankit to talk about some of the funding options for instruments and investments in startups. Ankit, over to you.
Thanks, Nitin. Very good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Funding instruments in startups is something that everyone wants to know and is looking forward to hear too. There are basically a couple of type of instruments that are used for investment in startups. The basic instrument is the equity shares. These instruments are used by early stage investors, the promoters, and these equity shares provide a standard voting and economic rights to the shareholders. There are very specific limited special rights that are available to equity shareholders as permitted under the corporate laws and what can be agreed contractually with the shareholders. Moving forward from equity shares, there is a convertible instruments that can be issued to investors. These can be compulsorily or optionally convertible redeemable shares. These are typically preferred by the investors for investment in startups since it allows a lot of flexibility to the investors in allowing for different investor rights to be commercially negotiated and agreed. It provides for liquidity preference, etc., to be built in with the shares which are there. From an Indian exchange control perspective, any investment in equity or convertible shares or even a debt is generally regulated. convertible shares, which are compulsorily convertible, are treated on par with the equity shares from an Indian exchange control perspective. Moving forward to another interesting instrument, which is called Convertible Nodes. This is a special instrument which is only available with startups for early stage investment. Any investor, overseas investor looking to invest in a startup, a registered startup, can use this instrument. This provides a flexibility to investor to provide money to the startup as debt initially, which can be converted into equity shares within 5 years, or where the investor is not comfortable holding the investment in the startup, such note can be redeemed or repayable at the option of the holder. Any transfers or any exchanges with respect to convertible notes, again, they are regulated by the Indian exchange control regulations. And other than this, we have not highlighted here, but there are some other methods which are up and coming, like venture debt, which are being now explored by various investors for investing in startups.
Thanks, Ankit. And of course, if you see the typical investors for startups, as you'll note, normally the starting round or the first round is done by friends and family or high net worth individuals, which could be in India or overseas. The second more prominent model is, of course, angel investor networks. And if there are any investors, individual investors, this provides a lot of comfort to them, because the angel investor network is typically run by a few experienced entrepreneurs or people who've already got a lot of experience, and they pool all the investments of the various individuals and get them a better deal, because a lot of startups may not want to speak to one or two individuals. But if there is an angel investor network with expertise and a larger pool of funds available, these investor networks are always more preferred. Of course, family offices are very prevalent. They do invest. There are a lot that come in from Singapore as well. And of course, as the startup grows, it will always be the larger venture capital firms or strategic players looking to invest in them. With that, I think we are done for this one. Thank you so much. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. We will take question after the next speaker. So we are nearly ending up there. So Brett is ready. I'm going to introduce Brett. Allow me for a few minutes. So Mr. Brett Moorgas is a Director of Advisory and Analyst Relation for APAC Middle East, based in Sydney, Australia. His responsibility is to build, develop, and strengthen business relationship between SCL and the advisory and analyst community across the region, both to raise an awareness of SCL, generate opportunity for their portfolio of service and technology offerings. Brett has been with SCL since October 2015 and has spent over 25 years in the ICT industry across Asia Pacific. This has includes working for companies such as Packard, Telstra, Emulex, Accenture. Brett has had extensive experience across different roles within marketing, partner management, and business development. So over to you, Brett. Thank you for joining us. I hope you are all set.
I am, Priya. I hope everyone can hear me. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to you, Priya, Santosh, and also to John Bergen for introducing me to all of you and to the ANZ India Business Chamber. It's a pretty tough act to try and come at the end of all these really interesting and informative presentations. So what I wanted to do is try something a little bit, go a little bit different in terms of my approach. And basically, as Matt mentioned earlier, part of these sessions were to share experiences and insights from the time that we've spent in the industry, in our various industries. And I wanted to do that just to sort of provide some food for thought with respect to talking about the ICT sector and how that can bring some connections between Australia and in India. And as Priya mentioned, I've spent over about 25 years in the ICT industry, and this role that I have with HCL Technologies is very unique for a couple of reasons for me. One is it's the first time that I haven't worked for a company that is either US or Australian headquarters. So first time working for one of the Indian heritage providers is what the term is for in the ICT industry, as some of you may know. So that's been a different thing for me. But also, secondly, the role that I have is speaking regularly to some of the key influencers in the marketplace, those that sort of act as that point, talking to end user clients as well as providers across the industry. So they're able to provide a bit of a pulse in terms of what's happening in the industry with respect to trends, with respect to investment decisions. And I sort of wanted to share some of my views and insights in terms of the industry, what challenges, or even you flip that over to opportunities that could provide for companies either in Australia or India for each other, and what that means in terms of, I guess, joint benefits for both India and Australia. So again, to start off, let me just give you, I guess, my views on the Australian ICT industry. And I'm not going to go down into providing any facts and figures, because with the pandemic, a lot of those forecasts around growth and rates of growth are pretty much going out the window in terms of how we negotiate the changing nature of the effects that this pandemic has. But I think it's fair to say, and I apologise for those in the IT industry if I'm about to give insights that you may already be aware of. I just thought I'd level set across the audience here, and that's, I believe the IT industry in Australia has very strong similarities to those of the US in terms of buying behaviours, in terms of deal cycles, as well as some of the IT trends that organisations are taking up. There are a couple of key differences. One is there is a very well acknowledged time lag between the trends that are happening in markets such as the US and those that happen in Australia, probably around 6 to 8 months. And the other factor which contributes to that is, I think, a degree of conservativeness and risk adversity in terms of adopting new technologies. Having worked for a number of providers and vendors, there's always been a viewpoint of trying to illustrate case studies that are very much with Australian organisations, as opposed to relying or trying to leverage more on what's happening on a global scale, as well as being very keen to understand the footprint that you actually have in country. Now, I think that will change, particularly not only as we now operate in a truly global marketplace, but also secondly, with the results and the impacts of this pandemic, there needs to be a little bit more of, I guess, calculated risk in investing into technology. The other point is that I believe that because of that conservativeness and some of the changes in the marketplace, there are pockets in the market that tend to hang on to what I consider as a very outdated perception of technology companies that come out of India and the value that they can provide. I think there is this, it ultimately sometimes falls back into seeing it as being a cheaper option, when in fact that's not the case. And I see that potentially as the top end of that medium enterprise segment in Australia is looking to invest more in technology to enable their businesses, but also as the decision making for some of these IT investments being taken out of the IT department and going into the business. The new group of stakeholders may not be aware of the evolution of some of the Indian companies such as an HCL. So it does revert back to, at times, as I said, an outdated perception of what the value is that organisations can provide. And this is something that has been validated a few times by the influencers that I speak to. That all said, while they may appear as challenges on the face of it, they do provide opportunities. And I think that that's what I'd like to sort of touch on as I in this next part of my presentation, and that's there is definitely an opportunity to be able to demonstrate the changing value or that organisations can provide, such as an HCL or even some of the new startups that are starting to emerge out of India. Now, when I started at HCL in 2015, I wouldn't have imagined that we would be the digital technology partner of Manchester United, and being able to evolve their platforms to better serve their global fan base as well as the network of partners. Bring us forward to 2019, and that relationship has now not only extended with Manchester United, but we've also started a similar relationship with Cricket Australia, as we're now the digital technology partner. And as has been mentioned before, there's a great bridge between India and Australia when it comes to cricket. And to think that an Indian heritage provider is now the technology partner of the national sport in this country is not only a great thing, but it's also a true testament of how I believe organisations like HCL and our peers, as well as some of the emerging organisations, are able to demonstrate that true business value. I also believe that with the effects of the pandemic, that's going to force organisations within Australia to really jump in fully in terms of adopting new technologies such as automation, as an example. Now, in Australia, we do have a skill set deficit in terms of some of these new technologies, and organisations in Australia really need to leverage the potential volume and talent that exists within the Indian market to really allow those organisations to adopt those new technologies and try and navigate through the uncertainty that the pandemic will cause us, not only just within the remainder of 2020, but I think well and truly over the next 18 to 24 months. So being able to accelerate that adoption of new technologies and in fact increase the rate of innovation in the Australian marketplace is particularly important. I noted with interest the previous presentation by Nitin in terms of some of the mechanisms that are being implemented within India in terms of allowing those startups to really ramp up. And I think the similarities between the Australian marketplace and the US marketplace is an opportunity for those organisations that have new solutions to potentially try Australia as a bit of a test bed for those solutions. If you can look at implementing and evolving those solutions to really achieve those objectives for businesses to demonstrate business value, then that's a good, it acts as a good test bed before you take those to greater markets across Europe and the Americas. And again, it certainly will allow for the rate of innovation and also knowledge transfer to happen in Australia as well, and help with our skill base. I think, as I said, with the evolution of organizations and being able to demonstrate business value and the new technologies and new skill sets that are potentially coming out of India, there's a great opportunity for those organizations to partner with Australian firms, Australian governments, to not only help with adopting those technologies, but also allow for some skill transfer, allow for that knowledge sharing, and certainly allow for both economic benefits and that skill set transfer to take place between both countries, and actually becoming a truly win-win scenario for both industries across Australia and India. So again, I just leave that as a bit of food for thought, something to chew over. And again, I'd like to thank everyone at the ANZ India Business Chamber for the opportunity for sharing my thoughts today. Thanks, Priya.
Thank you. Thank you for your precious time and words from all the speakers. Thank you so much. It was really, really very interesting to see where we are evolving as a country together. We have democratic values quite common. We have political values common, and not only the technology knowledge. I believe it's gonna be. We have as an Australian, we have a lot to offer. Not just the working space. It is also offering a lot of soft skill to India, and India can offer us a lot of hard skill to us, and it's a good merger for us. And those who don't know can check with their accountant in Australia. Australian government supports a lot of exporters and importers industry. There are a lot of grants, and also you can also check what Australia is supporting to this medium to small businesses to enhance in that industry, even including the service industry, not only the product industry or the manufacturing one. So very interesting. Santosh, we are open for the question answer. I'm going to unmute everybody. If anybody has any background noise, please try to avoid any background noise or slow down somewhere or unmute yourself. That will be really, really appreciated. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and everybody can ask questions from our speakers. And if anybody left out, don't feel bad. Just raise your hand. We can actually try to accommodate. We have not long to answer, so we will try to keep it short and sweet. Yeah. So, welcome. Yeah. Anybody has any question? It's very quiet.
I have some questions, please.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I have. In fact, there's question for Mr. McMillan and hello.
Yes, yeah, I can hear you, Mr. Surendra. Yeah, go
My
ahead.
name is Surendra Kalra.
Yeah.
We are a startup in the IT sector, providing solutions for blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We are getting assignments slowly into the agriculture sector, education sector, banking, and insurance. So we would like to work with similar companies in China, in Australia. We already have our relationship in the other verticals with Japan, Taiwan, China, Germany for international trade and investment. But for this IT issues, we want to have a certain partnership with similar companies in Australia.
Okay.
We also have an accounting BPO. Because of the pandemic, a lot of accountants have gone back home. So if there could be possibilities, we want to work on those aspects also.
Sure. So, Matt, you want to answer quickly?
You can try and connect with me if you want, and I'll see. I may have a lead for you, but others may also be able to help.
Yes, Matt.
Mr. Ellie, because Mr. Matt had given a presentation about IoT in ship, cattle in the ship and other things. Whether he has got any project which is concerning the commodity market, blockchain in commodity market.
I think you might be referring to Daryl, actually, Surinder. That's fine. What I'm happy to do, if you could perhaps broker a discussion outside this meeting, I think we'd be quite interested to understand a bit more about your business.
Yeah.
And opportunity.
Can you share your contact details? How do I contact you again?
Okay, Santosh, you can contact Santosh and he will be able to coordinate with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah? And he will
Thank you.
Attach you with the right person who can answer your questions.
Thank you. So nice.
And certainly, Surinder, that whole area of technology, so that's kind of my area as well as a partner at McCullough Robertson. So I do advise on technology companies as they're investing into Australia. So I guess where my technical expertise comes in is around the helping with some of the legalities of making or the contracts in terms of making that happen and setting up the right structures and the like. It sounds like at the moment you're looking at exploring with, that you're actually looking for different partners at the moment. So it's still quite an exploratory phase.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we are looking at partners so that we can work together in the Australian market.
Yeah, and certainly we do work with a range of advisors that can help in that regard. So look, I'm more than happy to have
Because
a chat.
what I have heard is that Australia is very good in drones also, and Indian pilots are going for their training to Australia. We are expecting certain assignments in the mining sector in various countries. So we would like to have some idea about the drones also from Australia.
Sure, sure. So we will connect you, like Santosh can coordinate and give your details to Matt or whosoever is relevant according to his question. I think Mr. Santosh can take
Thank
over
you very much.
offline.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question?
In fact, I had a question written for Mr. Bhattacharya. He was talking about FDI and Mr. Majumdar. Sorry. If you look into the FDI figures of Government of India, 44% comes from Singapore, 16% comes from Mauritius, 1.5% come from Cyprus. That makes 62% from the tax havens. So how do you account properly look into this? Is this a genuine investment? And most of it goes into the real estate sector, which is largely unorganized in India. And most of the time, the FDI increases during the time of general elections or state elections. And that time, even the dollar-rupee parity also depreciates by almost 10 to 12%. Every time the election comes in, the FDI increases, the rupee depreciates. If I am looking at this rate, I was a dealer in Indian Overseas Bank 40 years ago. I have been into foreign exchange market and FDI now for the past 40 years. And I understand the gamut very easily. You see, no other country has got this sort of combination that 60% comes from tax havens. Even China, which gets the maximum FDI, doesn't have this. GCC countries and China don't appear in the top 10 list of our FDI. That is the statistics shared by FDI, Financial Times London. So, do you think this is all genuine FDI coming to India? Startups, some Chinese companies have invested recently, only what Nitin was telling just now, or very recently in the startups. And that's why they started getting jittery when this thing, the new regulations came for the border countries. But as such, the genuine investment, I think, is not coming.
So that we can answer it and we can finish.
Yeah, that is what my question is to Mr. Majumdar.
Mr.
Is this
Majumdar,
all genuine investment you are talking about? Whatever, in fact, if you look at the ease of business, it is the legal documents, legal profession has not done much as far as enforcement of contracts and other things is concerned.
That is the
main hindrance. That is the main hindrance for FDI. Enforcement of contracts.
That is the reason Government of India is taking so many steps to open up the market so that only tax haven countries the investment should not come through only the tax saving purpose or tax planning purpose. If you see today, Australia's position in India is around 24th or 25th as far as FDI inflow is concerned, whereas Mauritius is leading the list, India. So here you can understand the think or mentality of the investors or what is the objective of the investor. So Indian government is opening up everything. So there is no need for any tax saving purpose.
Sir, I have like you, I have also got certain clients in the real estate sector. Those of who got their FDIs from Singapore, from the tax havens, and they virtually within 2 or 3 income tax department raided them. Because investment coming from the tax havens, they look with a magnifying lens. They look with a magnifying lens.
Mr. Surendra, please ask question. It's not debate. Please ask questions so that we can answer and we can summarize. We are running out of time. We need to go to the next one, please. Majumdar, you need to answer something?
No, that's what I told to Sir, Mr. Surendra, that it is altogether a bureaucracy thing, and Indian government is starting the planning, doing a significant way that how to distribute the FDI inflow among all the countries, not only through only tax haven countries, in order to looking the tax saving purpose.
Sure.
So that's the reason FDI has opened. You see the recent amendment.
Okay. Mr. Santosh, I would request you to please connect if you have a question, Mr. Suren.
I don't want that. Oh.
Anyone has any other question? We'll take
down here. Oh, yeah, down there.
Yes, please.
I should have asked that question.
Anyone has any other question? Otherwise, we will move on. Okay.
I think we had some interesting questions in the chat box itself. And
yes.
I think all the speakers have responded to that. Maybe we can move on to the concluding remarks now.
That's good. So I would like to invite Mr. Anthony Kelly. Mr. Anthony, you there?
Yeah. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Anthony Kelly from our board member. He's gonna conclude it, and he's been our member for a while. So to hear from you.
Thank you. So my name's Anthony Kelly. I'm from Miller Olson Lawyers in South Australia, and as indicated, I'm a board member of the Chamber, and I'm pleased to be providing some concluding remarks for this session. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Santosh and his team for organising the event. I think everyone will agree with me that we've had some fantastic presentations this afternoon. And I'd like to also thank all of our Australian board members and give a special thanks to our moderator, Ms. Priya Mishra, who has done a brilliant job, and Mr. Matt McMillan for his interesting insights in his opening remarks. My fellow board member, Matt McMillan, has thoroughly covered the important relationships that exist between India, Australia and Singapore, and provided some very useful comments on that interrelationship. For my part, I'd like to make a couple of general observations. First is that there are strong ties in many ways between India, Singapore and Australia that are long-standing ones. Almost 60% of the Australian corporate companies have offices in Singapore with large operations in India, and many Indian companies and Australian companies use Singapore as their marketing and logistics hub. In relative terms, Australia has a fairly small market of just 23 million people or thereabouts, and Australia's emerged as a leader in areas like ideas, research, technology, innovation, and as a provider of educational services. And this compares with India, which has not only a large market with over 500 people below the age of 25 years, which is a fairly significant differentiation between the countries as well. And that's the Facebook LinkedIn generation with a global network of contacts, as well as an appetite for things like technology, far more entrepreneurial, and looking at things like innovation, and innovation as a driver for progress. I think it's one where India's developing into an economic powerhouse in its own right now, and in some respects is acting as the back office to the entire world. And Singapore provides some significant advantages in terms of its strategic location, things like tax benefits, accounting standards, and providing a business hub to the whole region, really. It's steadily evolving as the front office to the world and a business hub to the whole region, and particularly with uncertainty surrounding other places such as Hong Kong at the moment too. And I think it's one that the strengths of India, Singapore and Australia allow them to work well together and utilise and build on each other's strengths going forward. I think there's significant synergies between the three countries in the Asia Pacific region, and we're only just beginning to see the tip of the iceberg in terms of those interactions, and I think there'll be a large amount of growth for businesses, for business being done between the three countries over the next 10, 20, 30 years, hopefully. In terms of the speakers this afternoon, or this afternoon Australia time anyway, we've had a number of excellent speakers, and I'd like to thank each of them for their time and effort they've put in, and I'm sure, like me, everyone's taken away at least something from each of those speakers. So thank you to each of them. We've had Mr. Daryl Chambers, who's given some an insight into the complexities and range of technologies associated with the internet and the ways in which this can be used to value add, and it highlights an important area in which there'll be increasing collaboration between India, Singapore and Australia. Mr. Bernstein, who's talked about the trade between the countries being significant but not significant enough, and going forward there's a need to focus on more value add type services, at least from an Australian point of view. Mr. Mazumdar, who gave us a detailed presentation on foreign direct investment in India and the significant growth in this area as a consequence of a range of factors, including business-friendly policies, skilled labour and low costs. And I think we can expect to see more joint ventures which will take advantage of the synergies between the countries, with mining as a good example of this, where the technologies developed in Australia can assist with making projects in India more viable and more profitable. Dr. Velan, who gave us some valuable insights into the real estate sector in India and what impact there might be with things like working from home and the new expectations for working spaces as a result of COVID. And interestingly, that there is strong growth in the desire for warehousing, which I think we're also seeing in other countries too. Mr. Ranganathan, who gave us some fantastic insights into the world of neobanks and their rise in recent years and the way in which people are changing their banking habits. Mr. Savara, who spoke to us about COVID accelerating the move to the digital economy, and some valuable information regarding investing in startups. And finally, Mr. Moorgas, who spoke to us about the opportunities and challenges in the IT industry and with digital technology and the interrelationship in that space between India and Australia and the growth that we've seen in that area. And the interesting thing with doing these in the way we're doing them now over a video chat is we got to see that he's obviously a fairly avid New York Yankees fan from the background in his room. So thank you to all of those speakers. I'd also just briefly like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors, Singania and Co LLP from India and Exante Digital from Australia, as well as our international partner, the Queensland Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As a final note, I'd like to just say that if anyone has any queries or business inquiries, please get in touch with the Chamber and we'll make sure that any queries are answered. And otherwise, I hope everyone stays safe in these uncertain times. Hopefully, we might be in a position to welcome some of you to Australia for the cricket series at the end of the year. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time and your precious valued informations. Thank you, everybody. It was really nice. I hope everybody enjoyed today. And we are going to come soon with the new stuff. Namaste. Good evening, good afternoon, and see you another time. Thank you. See you all.